That's why I say what we're dealing with is a far bigger problem than I believe most Americans are aware of. If you think about that, you say, how in the world can our government, how can America continue when we're doing this? Now, these numbers that I've said, I'm a Republican, a conservative Republican. These aren't Republican or Democrat numbers. These are just the numbers. This is just our country. This is a country that we inherited. This is really our country. And these are what the numbers look like. And so this is pretty frightening. And what that means is we're going into debt, deeper and deeper in debt at an incredible rate right now, trying to do something that mechanically, economically, mathematically just will not work. And so that's the nature of the problem. So if anybody has a little bit of sense of intuition, if anybody has a good American spirit, one of the first things you say when you see a good problem is, oh, how can we fix the problem? Because this is something all of us have to deal with. Well, let's take a look at what the possibilities are. The really possibilities remind me a little bit of all of these kind of funny weight-watching programs that are out there. I always think it's sort of interesting. There's people that says you're going to go in the low-carb diet or the this diet or that diet or something, and yet when you come to be a little bit older, such as I am, you're really faced with two realities. You either get more exercise or don't eat so much. It's about that simple. Don't have to have a lot of fancy dietary programs. In this situation, suggests that it's kind of simple. It's either don't spend as much money or tax everybody a whole lot more. The trouble is, in this situation, the tax everybody a whole lot more doesn't really work. Let me explain why it doesn't. We'll take a look at another chart. What happens to our economy is that we have these different taxes that we run, and in spite of all the different taxes, sometimes we raise them, sometimes we lower them. What the experience of the federal government is that our revenue kind of comes in this 18% average is what our revenue comes in. So you say, well, look, we got way too much spending and not enough revenue coming in, and we need an extra $1.5 trillion in revenue, and so we're going to just raise the taxes about 30%. The trouble is, if you do raise the taxes, the problem is that you don't get more revenue coming in. That's sort of a weird thing, isn't it? Let's talk about that for just a minute. Why would it be that if you raise taxes, the government wouldn't get more revenues? Well, the reason is because you tax the economy to a certain degree, and then you start to collapse the jobs and the economy. The economy goes south, and when it does, then it stalls, and you don't get as much tax revenue. But think about it this way. I like to explain it by just picturing yourself, if you will, to be a king for a year. And your job is to try to raise some tax revenue for your kingdom. And the only thing you can do is tax a loaf of bread. And so you start thinking in your mind about this. You say, well, let's see, my kingdom, they eat a lot of bread. So I could just tax a loaf of bread for just 1 penny a loaf. Or you could say to yourself, I know how to get a lot of taxes. I'm going to put $10 tax on every loaf of bread. And then you think, yeah, but I bet nobody would buy any bread if we did that. So your common sense would say somewhere between a penny and $10 for that loaf of bread, there's going to be an optimum tax. If you raise it or lower it, either way, you won't get as much money raised in taxes. And that's what's going on here. You can raise the tax rate, but what happens is people find out ways to avoid it. The economy stalls, and so in fact your revenue starts to fall off and you don't get any more money in. And of course the problem is your spending is still going like mad. And so the solution to this problem isn't even as easy as trying to lose weight. You really don't have two alternatives. What you have is really one alternative, and that alternative is you have got to get these entitlements under control. Now, the fact of the matter is that even if you look at a snapshot of this year, you have to get the entitlements under control. But particularly this graph shows that the entitlements here, these are just three of them, the big ones, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, that these entitlements are growing rapidly over time. So even if we went to the scenario up here and we got rid of defense and non-defense spending and we balanced the budget with a government spending nothing except just entitlements, even if we did that in a couple of years, these entitlements, this is, where are we, 2011 in here, in a couple of years, these entitlements are going to eat our lunch. And so the problem is you can't fix it by getting more revenue in, and so what's your alternative? The alternative is the uncomfortable fact that America cannot continue to afford these entitlements. Now, of course, that's radioactive to say that politically. I'm surprised I haven't been hit by lightning yet. But that is, unfortunately, the pure mathematics of it. Now, there are some people in politics, they like to sugarcoat things and may not tell you absolutely all the truth, but that's the facts. That's where we are. Now, how are you going to deal with these things? None of us really know. We have a bunch of ideas. We're struggling with how you're going to do it, but there are a lot of people that are dependent on these entitlements, and yet the money is not going to be there. We can't keep borrowing money from the Chinese to pay for these things, because sooner or later what's going to happen, the interest rates will go up on that money and the whole nation will be bankrupt. And I don't quite know what that would look like. What does it look like if you picture you get up one morning and you find out that the dollar bill doesn't work anymore? You go to your grocery store and it seems like everything stopped moving. The trucks aren't moving and you can't get food for the shelves because the trucks don't have gas, and the whole thing just kind of comes to a stop because the dollar bill, the whole country has gone bankrupt. I don't know what that looks like. I don't think it's particularly pretty, but that's going to be the picture if we don't deal with this problem. And so what I'm suggesting is that first off, what we have to do, every one of us as Americans, we have to educate ourselves on the simple facts. You don't have to be a wizard on the budget or economics. All you have to realize is that the entitlements are using up all of the tax revenues. Now, so that's a problem. Plus, the entitlements are also growing, and you don't really have flexibility to raise the taxes too much more.